It is a great pleasure for me to welcome Barbra Stewart here to exclusively give us a presentation of her fifth study in the Rich Thinking series, The Future of Women and Finance. Please welcome Barbra Stewart.
Thank you very much, Eva, and happy International Women's Day! Yay! It's so exciting. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, and it is such an honor. And thank you to everyone at Nordnet for creating this opportunity. It's a big deal. I've spent a year doing this, and actually 5 years. 5 years of study and over 300 interviews with smart women around the world. So that's given me time to think, and I've reached a few conclusions about women and money, and I'll share them with you over the next 20 minutes or so. But before I share my findings with you, I want to make it clear that while this research is my own, I'm really sharing the stories of all the people I met. So I really feel this sense of responsibility to communicate it properly, and it's a difficult thing to do because I spent an hour with each of the people that I interview, and then I try to put together this small quote. And when you read my white paper, which will be available today, you'll read the longer quotes than what I'll be showing you today. But it's tough to capture that, so keep that in mind, that there's a lot more depth behind all of these quotes, and I encourage you to read the white paper to properly do it justice. So I don't have a slide thingy, so I'm just going to be going like this. If that looks weird, you'll know why. Before I get into the stories of all these other people, I wanted to share one little story of my own. Early in my career, I started working in sales for Xerox Corporation, and it was there that I first heard the expression, "You become what you think about." And if I'm ever having a bad day, or even like a crazy morning, like probably some of you had today in the rain, I just ask myself, and if I'm in a bit of a bad mood, I think, what are you thinking about? What do you think about? Then I change my thinking. It's that easy. I just change my thinking to something positive. Sounds simple? It actually really works well, and I encourage you all to try it. 5 years ago, just to give you some context about why I'm here doing this, I had a hunch, a suspicion that the area of women in finance wasn't being portrayed accurately in the media or by the financial industry. Everything I read was negative, so I wondered, why were all these messages about women and money so negative? And that wasn't my experience at all in my day-to-day life as a portfolio manager, where I would work with very strong, capable, intelligent women. So that's how I got the idea to do my own research, basically because I was irked, and I wanted to find out the truth about smart women and money. And my goal really was to see if I could share some more positive messages. And of course, because I love this expression, "you become what you think about," I called my research Rich Thinking. Okay, so a quick review of my research highlights that many of you have heard before, because Stockholm's been so friendly to me. You've heard me talk about these things. So quickly, over the 4 years before this year, big thing when it comes to women and money, actions speak louder than words. Women may tell you, if you ask them, are they confident investors, they'll probably say something like, well, I should learn a lot more about it, something like that. We tend to be quite self-deprecating as women, but if you study the behavior rather than the words, the behavior of smart women shows that they're actually knowledgeable and they're doing things and they're making sometimes multi-million-dollar decisions. And they're very capable of dealing with their finances. Secondly, women prefer to learn about finance from real-life stories, from either role models or family members or friends. They don't tend to use traditional methods of learning, such as textbooks and online courses, and all that's going by the wayside anyway. And thirdly, women prefer to invest in causes or concerns that truly matter to them. And I spent a whole year on that, and I really have come to believe that. And then finally, smart women get started investing. So they decide, first of all, are they interested in doing it themselves? And if they are, then they go ahead and they do their own research and they make the investments. If they're not so interested, then they look for an advisor that they can trust and they get started that way. But either way, they take action and do something and start investing because they know that the worst investment decision of all is to do nothing. That's the highest risk investment behavior that there is. So, what about the future? Let's talk about that. This paper is called The Future of Women in Finance. So what happens next? Here are the 5 themes for 2015. And I must tell you that the most important difference in this year's work is that I decided to interview men and women leaders around the world. Why? Because my hunch this time around was that men were beginning to play a huge role in the women in finance world. Not just as mentors, but now as keen advocates for women in leadership roles, and because it makes business sense to do that. So the first theme, next slide, thank you. We will all be feminists in business. Now, feminism means the same thing that it always has meant. Women should not be treated worse than men. But until recently, this loaded word, we've gone back and forth over the years, liking it or not liking it, it was always seen as a political word, legal, educational, or economic issue. But in 2015, feminism is now being seen as a business issue. So what do I mean by this? Let's step now into some of the conversations that I've had over the past year. And again, keep in mind the actual quote, and I'll give you a second to read each quote, are much longer in the white paper and based on interviews that are about an hour long. But let's take a second to look at this. Dr. Anne Cavoukian, this woman, runs the Big Data Institute at Ryerson University in Toronto. And she talked to me about the importance of having freedom. The freedom for both men and women to express their views. And this type of open communication leads to a better functioning marketplace. More women will participate as leaders, as corporate governors, and as investors. And progressive firms that are led by both smart men and smart women, they're redefining the financial world to include this type of knowledge. So here is Paul Harderson. He's the president of NASDAQ in Iceland. I'll give you a second. And again, he talks about the inclusion of women in terms of leading to a better functioning marketplace. And from my interviews, I was told over and over last year that business needs to embrace feminism. Because feminism helps in the search for talent, it helps in better understanding our customers, it helps in understanding new technologies like social and mobile, and it might even result in higher share prices. Here we have Jim Musica. He's a corporate leader, a senior vice president at Xerox, and he's the first man to receive the Positive Difference Award for his work on helping women to advance. Jim told me that hiring people that all look alike, live alike, and think alike, that leads to pretty dangerous decision making. And understanding that is critical to maintaining your competitiveness in business. And so, although I say that we will all be feminists in business, I think we're still in the midst of a transition. But those individuals and companies who get it are going to be at a competitive advantage. And one day that won't even be true anymore. Everybody one day will be a feminist in the same way that everyone now uses electricity or uses a computer. Second theme of 5, the rise of what I call the financially confident woman. So who's she? Well, she's even more financially literate now than she's ever been. And most of the time, it's her own money that she's made, and she expects to make even more money. Not only through her investments, but through her salary, through her bonuses, through her stock options, and maybe she's even going to sell her business one day to Google. Read this one. This is Mel Coleman. She's an advertising guru. Speaking of Google, she's with Google in San Francisco. Young, amazing woman. Met with her there. She told me there's definitely been a shift, and the media is now focused on the confident woman. So finally, this is being shaped into a positive message. Global leaders, you've noticed, are acting as positive role models. Sandberg, Clinton, even Beyonce. And we're changing the conversation that we have with our boys. We're teaching them to be kind, and we're teaching them to have empathy. And this lady, Aoud Beylet, she's in Paris. She has a front row seat. She has an amazing job as a luxury brand expert. See what she has to say. Aoud told me that brands today understand that women are as wealthy as men, and that now women are in fact their main clients. So companies can take advantage of marketing to the financially confident woman, but the marketing approach needs to be different than it's been in the past. It's not going to be, here little girl, let me explain this to you. Instead, the message needs to assume that women have the money and they make the decisions and they already know a lot. So, again, we're in a transition period because the financially confident woman isn't yet 100% of women. Let's be real about it. And of course, sometimes companies are going to want to educate and inform women who aren't yet financially competent or confident. That's all fine. But be careful, because the financially confident woman might hear that same message as condescending or patronizing. Very delicate balance. So obviously, ultra-precise targeting is needed for marketers. And in my opinion, the future of marketing to women is really to stop marketing to women. Instead, market to people that have different skill sets, different levels of education, different investment philosophies, and different communication styles. Theme 3, more women equals more women. More women equals more money. That's the new business equation. So simply put, again, women are making more money, women are controlling more money, and women are making more of the financial decisions. Next slide. This is Marcus Steerley. He's with Credit Suisse. And I went to Zurich to interview him. I was really interested because most of you, I'm sure by now, have either heard about or read their research that greater diversity in the workplace leads to greater financial performance for companies. And you might not know that Credit Suisse only works on 5 big research projects a year. And they use their highest level talent in the firm to write this particular gender report. And as Marcus said, they didn't do this for fun. It's because it's about money now. I'll give you a second to read Judy's. So a huge shift now is that women have access to capital. And Judy Robinett wrote a best-selling book. If you haven't read it, pick it up. It's called How to Be a Power Connector. And she told me how up until now, most people haven't had access to capital. The middle class were brought up not to talk about money and certainly not to ask for money, especially girls. But now, with crowdfunding, there's been a massive paradigm shift, and women are learning about angel investing, and now women are connecting with each other, and we're making lots and lots of money that way. This is Eva Bernecki, who's in Copenhagen running KMD. Eva told me that while women may not be used to investing, they're certainly as capable as men are. And we know there's a lot of wealth out there. And so Eva thinks that the pension funds need to up their game. and get more closely involved in how both men and women invest. And it shouldn't be as silly as when you get your pension report to choose A, B, or C portfolio. That's too simplistic. And there are nuances, and money's pretty serious that people have accumulated. So, here's a face that doesn't suffer fools. How do you earn trust with women? Through transparency and through respect. And I heard this over and over again last year. Gemma Calvert is in Singapore, and she runs a company called Neurosense. They do neuromarketing to examine why people behave the way they do. And then they use behavioral economics to identify the bottlenecks that occur in every stage in a customer's journey. So yes, the financial industry definitely needs to be more transparent. And Gemma thinks that the way forward is to integrate social media and marketing. And women might not trust the financial industry, but they do trust each other. So we can use that. John Hagel is co-chairman of the Deloitte Center for the Edge in San Jose. And he believes that the future of women in finance will need to include what he calls the feminine archetype. The female communication style is needed in business, and it's much more nuanced, as we know. It focuses on metaphors, on stories, and on images. And the masculine archetype is all about dollars. But the feminine archetype is also all about dollars, but we will first ask the question, why am I doing this anyway? Last but not least, the fifth theme for 2015 is that technology changes everything. What do I mean by everything? Shira Abel here in San Fran also. She's a CEO of a US technology firm. Technology changes the way women inform themselves about stocks and bonds. This lady, Shira, told me she has 7 financial apps on her smartphone. Mobile has changed her whole life. And like most women, Shira fits in managing her money in between running her company, looking after her dog and her kids, and squeezing in her workouts. It's all on her phone. And here we have Irem in Istanbul. She runs a tech company as well. And technology changes how women even find asset managers to work with and how they decide to make their own investments, just about everything. So Irem told me she's been really surprised by her own mother, who's only 65, but she calls Irem up regularly because she's been doing her own research, searching out investment opportunities, and she'll call her daughter with things Irem hasn't even heard about because this woman's looking at her computer all day and loves it. So Facebook, now at 1.4 billion users, is the second largest country in the world. And women are more likely to belong to a social network, and they share more than men do. Have a look at this. This is Katarina Norden. She's the president of 3Coins, which is a really interesting financial literacy organization in Vienna. And they use game-based technology rather than book-based technology when they're designing investment education tools. And they have a very successful mobile app to teach kids about money, and it's a Facebook-type game called Core Runners. And technology appears to be more of a game changer for women than men when it comes to their financial behavior. Thinking of social, mobile, crowd sharing, crowdfunding, all of this. So companies need to take this very seriously and hire female leaders to direct these types of activities. For example, does your company have a chief social officer? And is she a woman? And if not, why not? I'm going to close the closing quote with my friend, the CEO of Nordnet, Håkan. I encourage you to read his full quote in my white paper because he explains how a 64-year-old female client made a comment in an email, and that comment inspired him to change the entire direction of the business. It's quite something. And Nordnet, as you know, is now redefining the financial world, and this includes truly inspiring women, which is what we're doing here today. So in conclusion, my happy surprise after the 5th year of doing this research, I've had the realization that we're much closer to the tipping point than I would have guessed when I started doing this research 5 years ago. And what I mean is that it would be really easy to be disappointed and even depressed with the ongoing pay gap and the numbers that don't seem to ever move about women on boards, at least globally, maybe better here, or women in senior management. Those numbers are real and they've been really stuck there for a while now. But based on every conversation I've had this year with these global leaders, I have a very real sense that sudden and abrupt change is imminent. Last line. Thanks. So I would like to keep this conversation going with you. And I write articles for Sun Media in Canada, and I write for Mrs. R, which is an online magazine. And I post regularly on LinkedIn and Twitter, so please connect with me and even ask me questions by email, whatever you want to know. This is my favorite topic in the whole world, as you can probably tell. And today you can go to my site, which is barbrastewart.ca, and you can read the full white paper. This will be really fun weekend reading for you all, The Future of Women in Finance. And thank you again. I know we're going to be open for questions. And again, happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, Barbara.
My pleasure.
As always, very inspiring, don't you think? It's just fantastic how the trends are moving. And it's great to just not feel them, but that you've actually heard it from real people, and also this time men.
Exactly.
So that we will get the change. And it's interesting, this regarding crowdsourcing and the sharing part, especially in our business and what we're doing.
Well,
and
you're living proof of it.
Yes. And that the trends move to this mobile, and women are actually in the driver's seat, I would say.
Absolutely. The stats are showing that.
Yeah. So I will actually open up if there are any questions to Barbara in the audience here regarding the report. Yes?
Are the changes being made due to men are changing their behaviors, or is it because we are changing our behaviors?
Can you repeat the question as well?
The question is, are the behaviors changing because men are changing their behaviors, or is it because women are changing their behaviors?
What's linking the trend?
What's linking the trend? Well, I didn't do any research on that specific question, so remember that my research is actually very simple. I just ask people one question, and my one question this year to all of these people was, what is the future of women in finance? And they can take the answer in whatever direction they want to go. And that's what makes it so interesting, because it went in all kinds of directions, and then my job is, what are the themes? And I have to sit down at the end of all this at the year and go, what are the threads, the common threads? So I can answer that out of a gut feel, but it wouldn't be research based, so I'm often reticent to talk like that. But I think that I'd go, it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. I think that there's also a lot of peer pressure right now on men, and I think there's a lot of great men that truly do believe in the feminism thing, but now there's not only peer pressure on them to make changes in business, but they're also getting it. I think that, they're not stupid. So especially global leaders, they're understanding that embracing feminism, as I said, is a business tool, and it's going to make more money, drive higher share prices, everything. So you might think what's not to get, but there's some people still stuck. And I admit I did see a bit of that. But with men and women, right? We're complicated creatures, all of us.
Yes, any? Oh, sorry.
Is there something in your last
Is there something in my last research that has surprised me? And I would go back to, well, two things. One, the extent to which technology is changing everything. I said that in the last slide. I'm actually blown away by this, and I think that is behind my sudden realization kind of coming through this year that I'm not worried anymore that we're going to be stuck. It's actually shocking. I think that we're going to see, as I said, sudden and abrupt changes imminently, and I mean soon. Some people don't believe me. Fine.
Yeah, I would love to experience that. Sorry.
I think you are, actually.
Yeah, in which country do you see the biggest change?
I'm sorry?
In which country do you see the biggest change?
The question is, in which country do I see the biggest change? I hadn't really thought of that because I go more by just what the voices are telling me rather than where they're located. So in the study, you'll notice that it's very, very diverse. So I've selected people by geography, certainly, also by gender now, men or women. There's lots of young leaders and older leaders, so there's a bit of everything in there. So it's just a collection of all of these diverse voices. But off the cuff, I would have to say that in terms of tangible changes, I would have to go with the Nordics, and I think one of the reasons I'm speaking here is that. I think that's evidence in itself. There is interest, a lot of interest in Turkey for this topic. In fact, I'm going to be speaking for the CFA Institute in Istanbul next week, and they seem to be tweeting up a storm as well. So from my experience, I'd have to go with Nordics, Turkey on the topic. Right now. This could change on a dime, right? But
Interesting
yeah.
combination, actually.
Yeah.
Do we have a last question for Barbara? No? Okay. You will be here.
I will be
through
here.
the end. So
Even not understanding Swedish, but I'm picking up a little bit.
you're getting good at this. So you will have a chance to speak to Barbara later.
Thank you.
I would like to give you this instead of flowers. This is, we've donated money to an organization called Hand in Hand that actually helps women to start their own businesses and to support their families and homes.
Wonderful.
So thank
very,
you
very
so
much
much,
for that.
Barbara.